My dad was a cop, but he hid a terrifying secret from the entire family. Part 1. My name is Ethan, and I used to think my dad was a hero. He was a respected police officer, worked night shifts, and often came home with bruises, torn uniforms, or stories about saving someone from danger. Growing up, I admired him more than anyone in the world. But then, everything changed. One night, my entire world collapsed. And I realized the man I trusted most was hiding something horrific. It started the summer I turned 17. My dad had always been strict, but lately he'd been acting paranoid. He'd double lock every door in the house, glance over his shoulder constantly, and get furious if someone touched his phone. Once I heard him on a call late at night whispering urgently. I couldn't hear much, except one phrase. They can't know. No one can know what we did. I froze. Who was they? And what couldn't they know? The next morning, I asked him about it casually. He snapped. His exact words were, "You ever eavesdrop on me again, I'll throw your phone into the river." That wasn't like him, at all. He used to be warm, protective, even funny. Now, he seemed like a stranger living in our house. My mom, meanwhile, avoided him. They used to be close now. She barely spoke during dinner. So one night I asked her quietly, "Mom, is something wrong with Dad?" She looked startled, but then just whispered, "I don't know who he is anymore." That terrified me. Later that week, I was in the garage looking for an old camera when I found a locked metal box under a pile of dusty jackets. It was hidden behind the furnace. I thought, no way Dad just left something random here. I looked for a key. Nothing. So I grabbed a crowbar and forced it open. What I found inside made my blood run cold. Inside were dozens of photos. Some of them were crime scene pictures, bodies, weapons, blood, but others were more personal. Pictures of me, my sister, my mom taken from outside the house. One was of me at school. Another was of Mom grocery shopping. They all had dates and times written on the back, in Dad's handwriting. I was shaking. Why would my own father be secretly watching us? But it got worse. There were documents in the box, 2 police reports, some stamped classified, and one name appeared over and over, Detective Luis Ramirez. I remember that name. He used to be Dad's partner. But years ago, he just disappeared. The department said he moved, but I suddenly wasn't so sure. I decided to confront Dad that night, but when I got home, something was off. His car was in the driveway, but the house was dark. No lights, no TV, no sound. I stepped inside and called out, "Dad? Mom?" Nothing. Then I heard a soft rustling from upstairs. I grabbed a baseball bat from the hall closet and slowly crept up. My parents' bedroom door was wide open. Inside, drawers had been pulled out. Papers were scattered everywhere. And in the middle of the room, my dad was sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. His gun was in his lap. I froze. "Dad, what are you doing?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Just looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "You shouldn't have opened the box." My heart dropped. He stood up slowly, still holding the gun. "You don't understand what I've done, what I've had to do." I backed away. "What did you do, Dad? What's going on?" He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned to the dresser. "In the second drawer, open it." I opened it. Inside was a flash drive. "Plug that in, watch it, then decide if you still think I'm a monster." I didn't even know what to say. He put the gun down, turned, and left the room without another word. I didn't sleep that night. When I plugged in the drive, I found one video file. No title, no info. It showed a police interrogation room. In the center, Detective Luis Ramirez, handcuffed, bloodied. My dad entered the room, looking furious. He slammed a file on the table and shouted, "You sold us out, Luis. You told them everything." Luis was sobbing. "I didn't have a choice. They threatened my family. I couldn't." Dad cut him off. You think your family matters now? You're a dead man. Then, the screen glitched, and the video went black. That's when I noticed a second file on the flash drive. It was labeled Burial Coordinates. I opened it. It was just a GPS pin somewhere deep in the forest. At that moment, everything inside me shattered. Was he involved in a murder? Did he kill his own partner? I needed answers. So the next morning, I skipped school and drove to the forest alone. It took me hours to hike to the location. But when I reached the GPS point, there was a shallow patch of dirt, freshly disturbed. I didn't have a shovel, just my hands. I dug until I hit something hard, plastic, a tarp, and inside it, a human skull. I fell back, gasping. This wasn't a misunderstanding. My dad killed someone. Probably Detective Ramirez. And now I knew. But here's the twist. As I turned to run, I heard a twig snap behind me. I froze. Then I heard a voice. You should have stayed home, Ethan. It was my dad, standing a few feet away, with a shovel in his hands. I sat there stunned. My mom stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. My dad, the man I looked up to my entire life, had just admitted that he killed someone and hid it for years. Not as a mistake, but as a choice. A choice to protect his badge, his reputation, and maybe us. My voice cracked. You killed him? Dad nodded, slowly. I didn't want to. I had to. He wasn't just a suspect. He was going to hurt your mother. And you. The room went completely silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator in my racing heart. I remembered that night years ago. I must have been 8. A loud crash, a scream, and then silence. Mom had told me it was a burglary that didn't go far. But now I knew why the man never made it out alive. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing my dad's words echoing in my head. He was going to hurt you. He wasn't just a suspect. I buried the gun in the woods behind the house. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think my dad was still the hero I grew up idolizing. But my sister? She didn't buy a word of it. The next morning, she cornered me outside before school. You believe that story? She asked sharply. He was trying to protect us, I said. She shook her head. He was trying to protect himself from going to jail, from losing his job. That's not protection. That's selfishness. She pulled out something from her backpack, a mini voice recorder. I recorded everything he said last night. My heart dropped. You what? I'm going to the police. You can come with me, or pretend you didn't hear any of it. I couldn't let her do that, not without thinking this through. So I made a choice that nearly destroyed us all. I took her recorder, and I ran. She chased me down the block, screaming my name, but I didn't stop. I sprinted behind the school, ripped out the tape, and smashed it under my shoe until it was just plastic dust and broken pieces. I felt like a criminal. When she finally caught up, she slapped me hard. You think you're saving him? He's not who you think he is. Later that day, our dad was waiting for us in the living room. Not angry, not suspicious, just quiet. I know what you did, he said, looking straight at me. I froze. I didn't mean to, but he held up a hand. I'm not mad. I just need you to understand something. Then he told us everything. The real truth. The man he killed. He wasn't just a criminal. He was a former cop, a dirty one. Someone who'd worked in the same department and gotten fired after being caught dealing with gangs. He blamed my dad, came to our house that night to get revenge. He was armed, violent. And my dad, instead of calling for backup, handled it himself. Why? Because he knew if word got out, the department would cover it up. Or worse, blame him. So he buried the body in an abandoned well, burned the man's car, faked a robbery scene, and told no one. My sister sat there in silence. Her eyes filled with tears, but her jaw was clenched tight. I should hate you, she said, but I don't even know who you are anymore." The following days were hell. She barely spoke to me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I started looking at every memory of my dad differently. The awards on the wall, the stories he told, all of it felt like a lie. And then, just when things couldn't get worse, the body was found. Construction workers dug up the old well. Within hours, it was all over the news. Unidentified remains discovered in abandoned property outside town. Police reopened cold case linked to former officer. My dad turned pale. My mom started crying. We knew what was coming next. That night, the cops came. Not just any cops, his former partners. They didn't arrest him immediately. They gave him a chance to talk, to explain. But one of them, Detective Morales, looked at him like he was scum. "You really thought this would stay buried forever?" Dad was taken in for questioning. And we were left behind in a house that now felt like a crime scene. A week later, we visited him in holding. He looked broken, tired, hollow. "They're charging me with second-degree murder," he said. "But if I cooperate, it might get dropped to manslaughter." My mom started sobbing. He leaned in closer to us. "You know what hurts the most? That after all the years I wore that badge, the second something goes wrong, I'm just another criminal to them." The trial started 2 months later. Media swarmed our house. Kids at school whispered behind our backs. My sister refused to go to court, but I did. I sat through every gut-wrenching moment. Photos, evidence, testimonies. The jury didn't care about his service record. They only saw a man who covered up a killing. In the end, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. My mom collapsed when the verdict was read. I walked out of that courtroom, feeling like I'd lost my father. But here's the thing. I never stopped visiting him. Every single week. He never asked me to lie for him, never told me to cover anything up. He just asked one thing. Don't let this be the only story they tell about me. Today I'm older, wiser, and still figuring it all out. I don't excuse what he did, but I understand why he did it. And when people ask me what happened to my dad, I tell them he was a cop, a protector, a father. And he was also a man who made one impossible choice and paid the price.